Have you ever wondered what happens in the absolute quietest moments of existence, right at the boundary, where the familiar, sunlit world softly fades into the profound, ancient mystery of the unknown? This is not a dramatic tale of ghosts, nor is it a supernatural ghost story meant to frighten you in the dark. This is the honest truth about the most intimate and profound experience a human mind can ever undergo, quietly existing in the twilight of human consciousness. If you're anything like me, you probably thought you understood how the end of life looks and feels. You have likely seen the dramatic representations in films, or you have heard the comforting stories of bright, warm lights, of a long, enveloping tunnel, of a gentle peace wrapping around the fragile human mind, like a heavy, warm blanket on a cold winter night. You might have even wrapped your head around the idea that this is a literal glimpse into another ethereal realm, a cosmic waiting room sitting just beyond our physical reach. But all of that, every single comparison you have ever heard or imagined, becomes almost meaningless when you learn about what modern neuroscientists and doctors have actually found hiding in the fading embers of the human brain. To truly understand what is happening when a person approaches the threshold of life, we must first look at the vast, intricate universe inside your own head. Your brain is a cosmic structure in its own right, home to roughly 86 billion neurons. Each of those incredibly tiny cells might have tens of thousands of delicate connections, linking to other cells, sending electrical impulses tumbling through the dark void of your skull, like comets streaking through the night sky. This neural network is alive with electrical birth and communication, even as old cells naturally burn out and die over the course of your lifetime. For most of human history, we simply assumed that when the human heart stops beating, the brain simply powers down immediately, like a simple mechanical machine being unplugged from a wall socket. We thought the fading of the light meant a sudden, terrifying plunge into absolute darkness and nothingness. People throughout history have looked up at the profound mystery of death and wondered what it might truly be. But when modern science began to peer into the delicate brain during the most critical moments of medical emergencies, observers began to realize that the fading of consciousness actually resolved into countless individual cascades of profound chemical and electrical activity, previously too subtle and too hidden to see with the naked eye, but clearly visible through the magnifying power of modern medical technology and brain scanners. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, and the possibilities it contains are equally vast. This beautiful truth applies not just to the endless cold stretch of deep space, but to the warm, inner space of human awareness and perception. The near-death experience that so many people describe when they return from the very edge of biological life is most often characterized by a profound, overwhelming sense of calm, a detachment from the physical body, and a vivid journey through a dark, narrowing tunnel toward a brilliant, incredibly welcoming light. It is a deeply transformative event, one that leaves the cosmic traveler forever changed, stripped of their fear of death, and filled with a renewed appreciation for existence. But the true source of this magnificent journey is not necessarily a departure from the physical world into a spiritual one. Rather, it is the ultimate, most magnificent performance of the physical brain desperately attempting to protect itself from trauma. As the human heart ceases its rhythmic pumping, the vital supply of fresh, oxygen-rich blood to the delicate tissues of the brain begins to slow and eventually stop. The space between conscious thoughts becomes almost unimaginably empty, much like the vast gulfs that separate the distant stars in the night sky. Yet somehow, even in all that fading energy and creeping emptiness, there is enough residual power and chemical fuel left out there to orchestrate one of the most complex, beautiful, and profound sensory experiences a human being can ever have. Think deeply for a moment about the fundamental nature of our visual system. Our eyes are constantly gathering photons of light, and our brains are constantly processing that incoming data into the seamless picture of reality we experience every second. When the blood flow drops and oxygen starvation begins, the brain must make incredibly rapid, ruthless decisions about how to conserve its rapidly dwindling energy reserves. The visual cortex, sitting quietly at the very back of the brain, begins to lose its electrical power from the outside, moving inward. The peripheral vision, the outer edges of our daily sight, begins to dim, pixelate, and fail first, starved of the oxygen it needs to function. As this biological darkness steadily encroaches from the sides, the center of the visual field remains electrically active for just a little while longer. This perfectly natural physiological process creates the distinct, unmistakable visual sensation of moving swiftly through a dark, narrowing tunnel. At the very center of this encroaching darkness, the remaining neural activity burns fiercely, interpreted by the desperate, fading mind as a brilliant, distant, incredibly pure light. It is not an illusion, and it is not magic. It is the raw, unvarnished biology of a highly evolved organ trying to make sense of its own shutdown sequence. And what of the overwhelming peace, the profound, almost supernatural silence that so many survivors describe with tears in their eyes? This too is a masterpiece of deep evolutionary design. In moments of extreme physical trauma, intense fear, or the sudden cessation of regular bodily functions, the brain senses the ultimate crisis and floods the entire nervous system with a massive, unprecedented surge of neurochemicals, endorphins, the body's natural and highly potent painkillers, are released in astronomical quantities that completely dwarf any normal, everyday experience. Alongside them, other powerful neurotransmitters cascade through the microscopic synapses, perfectly designed by millions of years of evolution to block out physical pain and emotional distress. This massive chemical flood produces an absolute, unshakable tranquility that defies logical description. The brain is gently easing the conscious mind into the quiet, shielding it from the harsh, brutal reality of the physical body's catastrophic failure. It is a deeply compassionate mechanism built right into our fundamental biology. In our daily lives, we are completely used to density, to things being close together, to the waking world being full of loud noise, bright light, and constant sensation. But step outside the normal, healthy operation of the awake brain, and an expansive, profound emptiness becomes the new rule. In this quiet space between life and death, the mind urgently attempts to organize the fading, chaotic signals into a coherent, meaningful narrative. The human brain is, at its core, a storytelling machine, fundamentally driven to find meaning and pattern in any sensory input it receives. When faced with the strange, unprecedented, and confusing signals of a near-death state, it draws upon the individual's deepest cultural background, their personal religious beliefs, and their most cherished memories, to weave a beautiful story that make sense of the profound physical changes occurring. This psychological phenomenon explains exactly why some people report seeing specific religious figures from their own personal faith, while others see deceased family members waiting for them. The underlying biological canvas is the exact same shutdown sequence, but the final painting is rendered in the unique, deeply personal colors of each person's lived human experience. Let us pause together for a moment and reflect deeply on what this scientific understanding truly means for us. The fact that these near-death experiences have a firm, measurable root in neurobiology and brain chemistry does not make them any less real or any less profound to the person experiencing them. In fact, when you truly think about it, it makes them even more astonishing and beautiful. The atoms in your body were forged in stars. The carbon that makes up your muscles, the oxygen you breathe, the iron in your blood. All of these elements were created in the nuclear furnaces at the cores of stars that lived and died before our sun was born. We are an integral, inseparable part of the universe. The exact same processes that built the vast cosmos built us. The same atoms that shine in distant, swirling galaxies shine brightly in our eyes. We are not mere observers of the universe looking in from the outside. We are the universe observing itself from within. And when the brain finally reaches its final biological threshold, it is simply the universe, gently and quietly dismantling the very organ of observation it took billions of years to create. Every single scientific discovery we make, every tiny neural pathway we map and study, every delicate chemical cascade we observe, expands our sense of what is possible. We are slowly, carefully learning that the boundary between life and death is not a sharp, unforgiving, terrifying line drawn in the sand, but rather a broad, highly complex borderland full of profound psychological and physiological activity. It is a slow journey, a careful transition marked by a magnificent fireworks display of neurotransmitters and fading electrical storms across billions of synapses. The brain does not simply give up and collapse. It orchestrates a grand, beautiful finale. This realization challenges us to keep asking difficult questions, to keep looking further into the darkness, to keep pushing the boundaries of what we know about consciousness. It fundamentally transforms our entire understanding of death from a moment of terrifying, abrupt suddenness into a natural, biologically cushioned, and deeply peaceful process. Imagine, if you will, the sheer, staggering scale of the time that preceded your existence. Over the next 100 trillion years, the stars in the cosmos will slowly, inevitably burn out and fade to black. But right now, in this incredibly brief, special moment of cosmic history, you are here, awake, aware, and breathing. The current era of burning stars and swirling galaxies is just a passing phase, a brief, beautiful flowering of complexity between the absolute chaos of the early universe and the cold, silent emptiness of the far future. Similarly, a single human life is a brief, spectacular flowering of consciousness in a universe that is mostly silent and dark. A near-death experience gives us a rare, precious glimpse into exactly how that fragile flower gently closes its petals for the coming night. It is a biological process governed completely by the exact same natural laws that guide the sweeping orbits of giant planets and the slow, majestic merging of ancient galaxies. The fundamental physical laws of our reality allow for the formation of stars, planets, galaxies, life, and mind. As we embark on this contemplative journey together to understand the true scientific nature of near-death experiences, we must approach the topic with a deep sense of respectful wonder and intellectual humility. It is incredibly easy to feel small and insignificant when confronted directly with the vastness of human mortality, just as it is easy to feel small when looking up at the endless expanse of the night sky. But I truly think the very existence of these deeply peaceful, biologically evolved survival mechanisms actually tells us something incredibly hopeful and comforting about our existential situation. It strongly tells us that our biology is fundamentally designed to protect us, to gently ease our passage, to fill our final fading moments with the illusion of light and a feeling of profound peace, rather than overwhelming fear and unbearable pain. We will continue to explore this profound mystery together, venturing deeper into the complex neurology of the dark tunnel, the intricate chemistry of the brilliant light, and the deep psychology of the final journey. The universe is endlessly generous with its incredible marvels, and the human brain standing at the very edge of life is unquestionably one of the greatest, most beautiful marvels of all. Have you ever realized that the brightest, most energetic moment in the life of a massive star happens not during its stable billions of years of existence, but in the exact fraction of a second when it dies? This is a profound cosmic paradox, one that challenges everything we think we know about the end of a journey. We naturally assume the transition to the quiet silence of death is a slow, steady dimming of the lights, a gradual draining of energy, until nothing remains. But what if the exact opposite is true? What if the human mind, in its final moments before crossing into the infinite mystery, actually experiences a breathtaking explosion of electrical activity, a brilliant supernova of consciousness right before the dark? This counterintuitive scientific fact forms the foundation of understanding the near-death experience. It is not a story of the brain simply giving up, but a magnificent surge of vital energy. For decades, scientists assumed the fading of a human life was accompanied by a quiet, immediate cessation of brain waves. The assumption was that without oxygen, the neural network would simply power down, collapsing into the vast darkness like a dying battery. However, modern neuroscience has overturned this assumption, revealing a truth far more beautiful. In recent years, doctors using electroencephalogram machines to monitor the invisible electrical fields of the human brain during the exact moments of clinical passing have captured something astonishing. Instead of a flat, silent line indicating total loss of function, they recorded massive spikes of highly coordinated electrical activity. These are known as gamma oscillations, the exact same type of brain waves typically associated with intense concentration, deep meditation, lucid dreaming, and profound memory retrieval. The famous astronomer Carl Sagan once beautifully stated that the cosmos is within us, that we are made of star stuff, and that we are a way for the universe to know itself. When we look at these final electrical storms cascading across the fading topography of the brain, we are literally watching the universe performing its final act of self-reflection through the lens of a single human life. The brain, facing the ultimate unknown, does not fade quietly into the night. It gathers its remaining chemical fuel, every reserve of ancient energy, and fires its billions of neurons in a synchronized dance. It is the biological equivalent of a localized supernova occurring entirely within the quiet space of the human skull. This intense burst of highly organized activity explains why those who return from the threshold report experiences characterized by a vividness that far surpasses ordinary waking consciousness. One of the most common and profoundly moving elements of a near-death experience is the phenomenon often described as one's entire life flashing before their eyes. For a very long time, this was dismissed as mere romantic storytelling, a dramatic trope used in literature. But the sudden, measurable surge of gamma waves in the dying brain provides a rigorous, scientific mechanism for this deeply emotional journey. When the brain senses the approaching silence, it seemingly unlocks the vast, ancient archives of human memory. The gamma wave activity sweeping through the memory centers allows the individual to experience a rapid, panoramic review of their entire existence. This is not just a passive watching of a movie. It is an immersive, emotionally resonant reliving of deep connections, moments of love, and experiences shared. It is the mind's way of gathering all its scattered fragments into a single, cohesive narrative. The space between our conscious thoughts in everyday life is usually filled with the mundane noise of survival. But in the quiet threshold of near death, the brain is freed from the immediate demands of operating a physical body. It turns its immense processing power entirely inward. The human mind is fundamentally a meaning-making machine, driven by evolutionary imperatives to find patterns and significance in the chaotic world. Confronted with the ultimate transition, the brain uses this final, brilliant burst of energy to weave a tapestry of pure meaning out of a lifetime of gathered memories. The overwhelming sense of peace and rightness that accompanies this life review is not an accident. It is the natural consequence of a brain successfully organizing chaotic experiences into a beautiful, resolved, and gentle conclusion, creating a psychological safe harbor against the approaching storm of biological failure. As we contemplate these magnificent electrical storms occurring in the twilight of consciousness, we must humbly acknowledge the profound limits of human knowledge. We can measure the exact frequencies of the gamma waves. We can map the chemical cascades of endorphins and neurotransmitters, and we can correlate these measurable biological events with the subjective reports of those who somehow survive. But there remains a deep, beautiful mystery at the core of the experience. How does physical matter, forged in ancient stars, generate the feeling of universal love? How does the fading biological machinery produce an experience that leaves the cosmic traveler with a total absence of the fear of death? The scientific data gives us the mechanics of the process, but the subjective why continues to invite endless wonder and respectful contemplation. It is completely natural to feel a profound sense of awe when looking out at the endless, vast expanse of a clear night sky, recognizing the infinite depths of the cosmos. It should be equally natural to feel that exact same sense of awe when looking inward at the infinite depths of the human brain. The near-death experience is not a terrifying plunge into cold nothingness. It is a meticulously choreographed, deeply compassionate biological process. It is a gentle journey, facilitated by the very organ that allowed us to experience the world's beauty. The brain, knowing its time is ending, builds a bridge of brilliant light, deep memory, and profound peace for the conscious mind to walk across. It uses the last of its ancient cosmic energy to ensure that the final experience is not one of physical pain or primal fear, but one of deep, abiding tranquility and absolute understanding. Think about the staggering scale of what is happening inside the delicate architecture of the mind During these final moments, 86 billion neurons firing in a synchronized symphony, creating a subjective universe of light, memory, and meaning, all while the physical body lies completely still. It is a true testament to the incredible resilience and the magnificent complexity of human biology. We are a species capable of mapping the distant galaxies, of sending spacecraft beyond the very edges of our solar system, of decoding the fundamental genetic language of life itself. And yet, the most profound, most transformative journey any human being can ever undertake happens entirely within the microscopic spaces between our own fading neurons. The cosmos does not just exist out there in the freezing darkness of deep space. It exists right here, in the warm, quiet twilight of our own fading minds. Recognizing the scientific, neurological basis of near-death experiences does not strip them of their wondrous mystery. It deepens that mystery to an almost unimaginable degree. To know our bodies are hardwired by evolution to provide a peaceful, beautiful transition at the end of life is to recognize an inherent compassion written into the fabric of nature. We are not abandoned by biology at the bitter end. We are gently cradled by it. The brilliant, welcoming light, the overwhelming sense of universal peace, the vivid reliving of a lifetime of love, all of these are the final, magnificent gifts of a dying brain. It is the universe's beautiful way of gently closing the book on a single, unique human story. The silence that follows is not an empty, terrifying void, but the quiet resting place of a cosmic journey well traveled. As we continue to carefully untangle the intricate threads of this grand biological symphony, we must remember that every single piece of data, every scientific study, and every survivor's story is just a tiny puzzle piece in a much larger, infinite picture. We are cosmic explorers, standing on the shores of an immense, uncharted ocean of consciousness, just beginning to dip our toes into the deep waters. The scientific journey into the dying brain is not just a cold academic pursuit. It is a deeply personal, universally human exploration of our shared destiny. We will continue to venture forward together, examining exactly how the physical brain manages to create the profound sensation of existing completely outside the physical body, and how it fundamentally alters the perception of space and time. The mysteries of the quiet mind are vast, and our journey into the darkness has only just begun. Have you ever wondered why, in the absolute quietest moments of biological crisis, people so often report feeling as though they are gently floating outside their own physical forms, looking down from above like a detached, peaceful observer of their own sudden medical emergency? This is a profound scientific paradox that challenges our most basic, everyday perception of reality. We are used to density, to things being close together, to the world being full, and our consciousness being tightly bound to our physical bodies. We move our hands and feel the motion. We see from a specific point of view, located just behind our foreheads. But what happens when that fundamental anchor suddenly dissolves? To truly understand this gentle unmooring, we must look deeply into a specific, incredibly complex region of the brain known as the temporoparietal junction. This tiny, ancient structure sits quietly on the surface of your brain, acting as the ultimate cosmic mission control center for your sense of physical self. In every single moment of your waking life, this region is receiving a massive, continuous stream of data from your eyes, your inner ear, your muscles, and your skin. It takes all of this chaotic, overlapping information and seamlessly weaves it together into a single, cohesive narrative. The undeniable feeling that you are located inside your own body. It is the gravitational force holding the entire constellation of your personal physical identity together. But when the human heart stops its rhythmic beating, and the vital supply of freshly oxygenated blood begins to slow, this incredibly delicate, energy-hungry integration center is one of the very first systems to experience catastrophic electrical failure. Imagine a magnificent spacecraft launched by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, traveling far beyond the familiar edges of our solar system. As long as its complex navigation computers are constantly receiving precise telemetry data from distant tracking stations on Earth, the spacecraft knows exactly where it is in the vast, empty ocean of deep space. But if those vital communication signals are suddenly severed, the spacecraft is adrift, untethered from its point of origin, floating silently into the infinite unknown. This is precisely what happens to human consciousness when the temporoparietal junction loses its electrical fuel. The mind does not cease to exist immediately. Instead, it loses its strict spatial coordinates. Freed from the heavy, restrictive gravity of continuous sensory input, the brain's internal model of the self simply floats upward. The mind reconstructs the scene from a detached, elevated perspective, because it is the only logical way the fading brain can make sense of the sudden, complete loss of physical grounding. It is a brilliant biological illusion, a beautiful protective mechanism that shields the dying individual from the terrifying sensation of physical collapse. The out-of-body experience is not a literal departure from the physical universe, but rather a magnificent, desperate recalculation by an organ trying to locate itself in a suddenly chaotic, fading world, replacing primal panic with a deep, expansive sense of cosmic detachment and wondrous peace. But the unmooring of the self in space is only half of this profound journey into the quiet. As the mind begins its gentle, peaceful expansion outside the rigid boundaries of the physical body, something equally magnificent happens to the human perception of time. Have you ever noticed how time seems to slow down to an absolute crawl during moments of extreme adrenaline, like a sudden accident or a frightening fall? Now multiply that sensation by an order of magnitude so vast that the waking human brain can barely comprehend it. Survivors of near-death experiences frequently report that they spent what felt like hours, days, or even an eternity basking in the brilliant, warm light, completely separated from the ticking clocks of the physical world. Yet the objective medical records clearly show that their hearts were stopped for only a mere handful of minutes. This temporal paradox is not a failure of memory. It is a profound revelation about how the physical brain artificially constructs the continuous flow of time. The renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson once reminded us that we are intimately, fundamentally connected to the universe, and that the universe itself is encoded within us. Just as Albert Einstein demonstrated, that time is not an absolute ticking clock in the deep vacuum of space, but rather a flexible fabric that can be stretched and warped by extreme gravity. Modern neuroscience is discovering that subjective human time is equally flexible. In the normal waking state, our brains constantly slice reality into discrete, manageable fractions of a second, creating a steady, reliable rhythm that allows us to navigate the physical world safely. But as the electrical storms of the near-death state cascade across the cortex, firing billions of synapses simultaneously, this internal clock shatters into millions of beautiful, scattered pieces. The massive surge of survival neurochemicals, combined with the sudden lack of fresh oxygen, causes the fading brain to process internal information at an almost incomprehensible speed. A single, fleeting second of objective, physical time can be stretched out into an incredibly vast, rich, subjective eternity. We must pause here to respectfully contemplate the sheer, staggering scale of the neurological processing required to create such a profound, temporal illusion. Today, we estimate that there are around 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. Each of those massive galaxies contains billions or even trillions of ancient stars. The numbers become so incredibly large that they completely stop meaning anything to our ordinary human brains. Yet the complex electrical web of the human brain rivals this vast cosmic structure. With roughly 86 billion neurons, each making tens of thousands of microscopic connections, the dying mind creates a beautiful, expansive pocket universe of slowed time and floating space, a quiet sanctuary where the self can exist peacefully as the biological machinery fails. This profound unmooring from physical space and rigid time brings with it an overwhelming sense of peace and a deeply moving feeling of universal connection. When you are no longer anchored to a specific physical body, and when you are no longer constrained by the relentless ticking of the clock, what remains? What is left when the heavy burdens of human survival are gently lifted away by the fading chemistry of the mind? What remains is pure, unadulterated awareness. The individual feels a profound merging with everything around them, an oceanic feeling of absolute oneness that transcends all religious boundaries and cultural differences. Carl Sagan frequently reminded humanity that we are made of star stuff, an accurate description of our chemical makeup. When people report that during their out-of-body experience they felt the entire universe was made of unconditional love, they are translating a profound biological event through the fragile lens of human emotion. The massive, unprecedented flood of endorphins washes away all fear, all anxiety, and all physical pain. In the total absence of these deeply ingrained survival drives, the brain naturally interprets this ultimate state of biochemical peace as pure, universal love. The boundaries between the self and the vast empty universe dissolve completely, culminating in a beautiful fading of the brain's boundary, creating mechanisms. We are incredibly lucky to exist during this brief, beautiful flowering of scientific understanding. A few centuries ago, people assumed the visions seen at the edge of life were literal glimpses into physical heavens or hells. Each step in our scientific journey has made our physical bodies seem smaller in some sense, but it has also made the internal universe of the human brain grander, more interesting, and infinitely more worthy of respectful awe. The fact that biology has evolved a mechanism so complex, so beautiful, and so profoundly merciful to handle the ultimate transition of death challenges us to keep asking questions, to keep looking further into the darkness, and to keep pushing the boundaries of what we know about the infinite nature of consciousness. The universe is looking at itself, trying to understand what it is and how it came to be. And in the quietest, most private moments of biological existence, the universe within you gently says goodbye to the universe around you. But our journey into these deep, uncharted waters is not yet complete. we must still explore what happens to the very core of human identity as the final chemical lights begin to permanently dim. We will continue to venture forward together, mapping the final borders of consciousness with gentle curiosity, quiet humility, and a deep, abiding wonder. Have you ever wondered what happens to the very core of who you are? The distinct personal voice inside your head that you call your identity, when the biological machinery that sustains it begins to gently power down for the final time. This is a profound scientific paradox that challenges the deepest foundations of our daily human experience. In our everyday waking lives, we feel incredibly solid, singular, and beautifully distinct from the world around us. You are you, and the vast, swirling universe is something entirely separate, existing outside the boundaries of your skin. But what if this rigid separation is nothing more than a brilliant, highly energy-intensive illusion, carefully maintained by the brain to help you navigate the physical world? What happens when the heavy, demanding curtain of human identity is finally softly drawn back, revealing the infinite, ancient reality underneath? To truly understand the deeply transformative nature of a near-death experience, we must look into the exact neurological mechanisms that create the human ego and watch with respectful awe as those mechanisms quietly and peacefully dissolve into the cosmic darkness. Deep within the architecture of your mind, there is a highly connected, incredibly active system of brain regions known to modern neuroscience as the default mode network. This specific network is the biological seat of your personal identity. It is the complex neural engine that constantly generates your inner monologue, your anxieties about the future, your regrets about the past, and your firm sense of being an isolated individual moving through a chaotic world. The default mode network is a massive consumer of metabolic energy, requiring a constant, heavy flow of oxygen-rich blood to maintain the strict defining borders of your ego. But in the quiet threshold of a medical emergency, when the heart can no longer sustain this demanding biological rhythm, the default mode network is forced to gracefully power down. As the electrical activity in these identity-generating centers begins to slow and eventually fade into profound silence, the rigid walls of the self begin to completely crumble. The cosmic traveler is no longer a localized, isolated point of consciousness. They become something far more expansive, gently merging with the vastness of the experience itself. This neurological unbinding explains one of the most universally reported and beautiful aspects of the near-death journey: the sensation of encountering a boundless, unconditionally loving presence, or the feeling of merging directly with the very fabric of the cosmos. Without the default mode network constantly shouting its localized, fearful narrative, the fading mind is suddenly completely free to experience the raw, unfiltered reality of its own fundamental nature. The renowned astrophysicist Carl Sagan often spoke of the profound truth that we are entirely made of ancient star stuff, forged in the nuclear furnaces of distant, dying suns, billions of years ago. When the ego dissolves in the twilight of consciousness, this scientific truth is transformed into a deeply subjective, incredibly moving emotional experience. The mind stops feeling like a tiny, fragile passenger looking out at a vast, terrifying universe, and instead realizes with overwhelming peace that it is the universe itself. The gentle fading of the self is not a loss. It is a magnificent, infinite expansion, a quiet homecoming to the primordial source from which all physical matter originally emerged. As the strict boundaries of the physical identity continue to dissolve into the quiet, the brain must still attempt to process the overwhelming flood of disorganized sensory information and the massive surge of survival neurochemicals cascading through its dying circuits. The human mind, even in its final moments, remains an evolutionary masterpiece of pattern recognition. When confronted with this vast, dissolving ocean of pure, unbounded consciousness, the brain desperately reaches for familiar concepts to anchor itself. This is why so many people who reach this profound threshold report encountering ancient, glowing entities, deeply comforting spiritual guides, or beloved family members who have passed away. These incredibly vivid encounters are not necessarily literal visitations from an external, supernatural realm. Rather, they are the brain's magnificent, poetic attempt to translate the overwhelming, unimaginable feeling of absolute cosmic unity into a language that the human mind can actually comprehend. The brain takes the raw, boundless sensation of universal love and wraps it in the familiar, comforting visual shapes of human faces and gentle, welcoming figures. Think deeply for a moment about the awe-inspiring scale of the scientific instruments we use to study the universe, such as the European Space Agency spacecraft that have carefully mapped the ancient cosmic microwave background radiation. These sensitive satellites look out into the freezing darkness to capture the oldest light in the universe, the fading echo of the origin of all things. In a very similar, beautifully poetic way, modern neuroscientists are using highly advanced scanning technology to map the fading background radiation of human consciousness. When they look closely at the brains of individuals experiencing these profound altered states, they see a magnificent swirling storm of endogenous neurochemicals, including powerful compounds that remarkably resemble naturally occurring psychedelic molecules. These deep, evolutionary chemicals bind to specific serotonin receptors across the cerebral cortex, fundamentally altering the way the brain perceives reality, space, and connection. The brain is literally flooding its own systems with a potent, natural elixir designed by millions of years of evolution to ease the transition from the light of day into the infinite, quiet mystery of the unknown night. In our normal daily existence, we are surrounded by endless noise and constant distraction. We are completely used to the frantic pace of modern human civilization. But step outside the heavy gravity of the ego, and a profound, majestic stillness becomes the absolute rule. The near-death experience is characterized above all else by an unshakable, deep peace, a silence so complete and so beautiful that survivors often struggle to find the earthly words to describe it. This silence is not the cold, terrifying emptiness of a void. It is the warm, rich, and comforting stillness of a journey nearing its natural, peaceful conclusion. When the fear of biological death is completely removed by the brain's protective chemical flood, what remains is pure wonder. The individual, stripped of their earthly worries and physical pains, is allowed to simply float in the vast, glowing ocean of their own consciousness. It is a state of being that completely transcends human language, a deeply private, magnificent universe created entirely within the microscopic spaces between 86 billion fading neurons. We must approach this scientific understanding with the utmost humility and a deep, abiding sense of respectful awe. To recognize that the human brain has evolved such an incredibly complex, deeply compassionate mechanism for the end of life does not diminish the profound spiritual beauty of the experience. It magnifies it to a cosmic scale. The universe is endlessly generous with its incredible marvels. From the slow, majestic dance of spiral galaxies stretching across 100,000 light years of empty space, to the incredibly delicate microscopic chemical cascades that bring profound peace to a dying mind, the same fundamental physical laws govern it all. We are witnessing the ultimate, most beautiful performance of the biological machinery, a grand finale orchestrated by nature to ensure that the final chapter of a human story is written not in primal terror, but in absolute, unconditional tranquility. It is a gentle reminder that we belong to the cosmos, and that the cosmos takes gentle care of its own. As we continue to carefully unspool the incredibly complex, beautiful mysteries of the human brain at the very threshold of existence, we find ourselves standing on the edge of an infinite, uncharted ocean of understanding. Every single piece of data we gather, every neurological pathway we map, and every deeply moving story of survival we listen to simply adds another tiny, glowing pixel to a vast, incomprehensible picture. The scientific journey into the quiet mind is not a cold, clinical dismantling of human spirituality. It is an incredible, awe-inspiring validation of our deep, unbreakable connection to the ancient, infinite universe. We are slowly learning that the journey into the dark is not a solitary, terrifying fall, but a guided, chemically cushioned, and profoundly gentle return to the source. We will continue to venture forward together, exploring exactly how these transformative near-death experiences permanently alter the brain's wiring for the rest of a survivor's life, leaving them changed in ways that modern science is only just beginning to understand. The mysteries of the quiet mind are vast, and our contemplative journey into the beautiful unknown is far from over. Have you ever wondered how a single fleeting moment, an experience lasting only a mere handful of minutes, can permanently rewire the fundamental architecture of a human mind for the rest of its natural life? In our everyday, waking existence, we are taught that true lasting change is a slow, incredibly arduous process. We firmly believe that altering our deep-seated habits, our profound fears, and our core personality traits requires years of dedicated effort, constant repetition, and slow psychological growth. But what happens when the fragile human brain is pushed to the absolute, undeniable edge of its biological limits? When the cosmic traveler returns from the quiet threshold of a near-death experience, they do not simply wake up and resume their previous existence as if nothing has happened. Instead, they almost always return fundamentally transformed, carrying a deep, quiet wisdom that forever alters how they interact with the physical world around them. To truly understand this magnificent, lasting metamorphosis, we must look deeply into the incredible scientific phenomenon of neuroplasticity and marvel with respectful awe at how a sudden, massive surge of ancient survival chemistry can instantly and permanently rewrite the internal code of a human being. For the vast majority of our lives, an ancient almond-shaped structure buried deep within the brain called the amygdala acts as our primary highly sensitive warning system. It is constantly, quietly scanning the chaotic environment for potential threats, generating the necessary biological fear that has kept our fragile human species alive for hundreds of thousands of years. The absolute greatest of these fears, hardwired into the very foundation of our nervous system by millions of years of evolution, is the primal terror of our own biological mortality. We spend our days unconsciously building elaborate psychological defenses to avoid facing this ultimate quiet silence. But when a person goes through the profound chemical flood of a near-death state, this deeply ingrained fear is often completely and permanently washed away. Neurologists carefully studying the brains of those who have returned from the very edge of the universe have discovered something truly beautiful. The massive, unprecedented release of endorphins, powerful neurotransmitters, and endogenous psychedelics during the medical crisis acts like a biological reset button for the human mind. The intense electrical storms that swept across the cerebral cortex during those few quiet minutes literally forge entirely new neural pathways, completely bypassing the old, heavily worn circuits of anxiety and primal terror. The brain, having successfully survived the ultimate biological transition and experienced the boundless welcoming light, simply no longer perceives the end of physical life as a threat. The individual returns to the waking world with an unshakable, quiet peace, holding a deep internal knowing that the final journey is not something to be feared, but a gentle, inevitable return to the vast, peaceful cosmos. To truly grasp the breathtaking magnitude of this sudden transformation, we can look out into the vast, swirling universe for a perfect cosmic parallel. Consider the incredible phenomenon of a stellar nursery. A massive, quiet cloud of primordial gas and dust, drifting silently through the freezing vacuum of deep space. For millions of years, the vast cloud remains dark, cold, and relatively unchanged, sleeping in the cosmic night. But when a powerful shock wave from a distant exploding supernova finally passes through it, the sudden immense physical pressure forces the scattered gas molecules to collapse rapidly inward. In a remarkably brief period of cosmic time, a brilliant, burning new star is ignited, permanently altering the gravitational and visual landscape of that entire region of space. The near-death experience acts as exactly that kind of profound, transformative shockwave for the fragile human mind. The intense, concentrated burst of neurological activity compresses years, or even decades, of slow psychological evolution into a single, breathtaking moment of pure clarity. The survivor emerges as a newly ignited star, radiating a completely different, much warmer frequency of emotional energy. They frequently report a massive, sudden increase in their capacity for unconditional empathy, a deep, abiding appreciation for the smallest beauties of the natural world, and a profound feeling of interconnectedness with all living things. They have touched the infinite mystery of existence, and that brief, gentle touch leaves a permanent, glowing fingerprint on their consciousness. But we must ask our scientific curiosity: how exactly does the soft physical tissue of the brain manage to hold on to this fleeting vision for decades after the event? The fascinating answer lies in another beautiful seahorse-shaped structure located deep within the temporal lobe, known to medical science as the hippocampus. This ancient region is the biological center for profound learning and complex memory integration. During a normal, ordinary day on Earth, the hippocampus carefully selects which scattered memories are important enough to be slowly encoded into long-term storage while we sleep. However, during the immense chaotic electrical surge of a near-death event, the hippocampus is completely flooded with a cocktail of survival neurochemicals that urgently signal the ultimate biological importance of the fading moment. This massive chemical flooding causes a well-documented physiological phenomenon known to neuroscience as long-term potentiation to occur at an incredibly accelerated rate. The delicate, microscopic synapses connecting the billions of neurons physically grow, expand, and strengthen in a matter of mere minutes, permanently locking the overwhelming feeling of universal love and boundless, quiet peace into the fundamental architecture of the brain. The deeply moving memory of the quiet, welcoming light is not stored like an ordinary fading memory of a past conversation. It is literally burned into the neural circuitry as a foundational, undeniable truth of the individual's entirely new reality. It becomes the permanent, guiding lens through which they will view every single subsequent experience for the remainder of their physical life on this planet. We must pause here, taking a deep breath, and gently contemplate the existential beauty of this biological mechanism. The comforting fact that our physical brains possess the latent, hidden ability to instantly rewire themselves for deep peace and boundless empathy is a glorious testament to the incredible wisdom of human evolution. We are not rigid, unchangeable machines, doomed to operate forever on our earliest, most fearful evolutionary programming. We are highly adaptable, magnificent, complex networks of cosmic energy, fully capable of experiencing radical, permanent spiritual growth in the literal blink of an eye. The widely revered physicist Albert Einstein frequently marveled at the profound, undeniable interconnectedness of the entire universe, suggesting that our everyday feeling of strict separation from the rest of the cosmos is merely an optical delusion of human consciousness. The brave survivors of near-death experiences return to us from the quiet edge of the dark as living, breathing proof of this profound scientific and philosophical truth. They have briefly stepped completely outside the heavy, fearful delusion of physical separation and bathed quietly in the infinite, warm reality of cosmic unity. When they return to their waking lives, they do not bring back physical artifacts from another mystical realm. They bring back something far more valuable. They bring back a transformed biological instrument, a human brain that has been permanently, beautifully tuned to the gentle, harmonious frequency of the universe itself. As we continue to walk together along this quiet, contemplative path, exploring the beautiful, endless mysteries of the human mind, we are slowly, carefully learning that the journey into the dark is ultimately a journey of profound biological illumination. The near-death experience is not just a fascinating medical anomaly to be recorded in a sterile textbook. It is a life-altering teaching tool, a gentle, quiet whisper from the cosmos, reminding us of our true, ancient nature. It shows us with absolute scientific clarity that beneath the loud, chaotic noise of our daily physical survival, there is a vast, calm ocean of deep, abiding peace, patiently waiting to be accessed. We do not necessarily need to reach the final edge of biological life to begin learning from these magnificent transformations. By simply opening our minds, listening to these stories with respectful awe, and truly understanding the elegant science behind them, we can begin to quiet our own fearful minds and gently expand our own sense of connection to the vast, swirling universe. The stars above us and the neurons within us are participating in the exact same ancient dance of energy and light. But our exploration into the profound depths of human consciousness still holds many incredible, undiscovered secrets. We must now prepare to turn our curious gaze toward the very beginning of the journey, to ask how this complex brain formed in the very first place, and what the ancient birth of human consciousness can tell us about its ultimate fading. We will continue to venture forward together into the quiet, embracing the endless mystery with respectful awe, profound quiet wonder, and an endless gentle desire to truly understand the universe we call our home. Have you ever wondered how the absolute, profound silence that exists before you are born is fundamentally identical to the vast, quiet mystery that awaits at the end of your life? We spend so much of our waking energy focused intently on the fleeting moments between these two great silent oceans, completely forgetting that they are inherently connected. We often think of our minds as something that simply is, a permanent fixture of reality. But what if the sudden, magnificent fading of consciousness during a near-death experience can only be truly understood by looking back into the deep darkness at the exact moment that consciousness was first ignited? This is a beautiful scientific paradox that challenges us to fundamentally shift our perspective. To truly grasp the majestic ending of the biological symphony, we must respectfully journey all the way back to its ancient, miraculous beginning. We must explore the microscopic dawn of the human brain and watch with awe as the universe carefully assembles the most complex structure it has ever created out of scattered, ancient stardust. Deep within the warm, protective silence of the womb, a miracle of biological engineering unfolds over the course of roughly 9 incredibly active months. Long before a child takes their first breath of earthly air, a microscopic cluster of simple, identical cells begins a breathtaking process of division and specialization, known to biology as neurogenesis. In these early, quiet weeks, the developing human brain generates new neural cells at a staggeringly rapid pace, peaking at an astonishing rate of approximately 250,000 new neurons every single minute. Imagine that magnificent speed for a moment. Hundreds of thousands of fragile cells migrating to their exact preordained positions within the developing skull, following invisible chemical trails with absolute precision. They lay the vast, complex foundation for every thought, every memory, and every deep emotion that individual will ever experience. It is the biological equivalent of constructing an entire galaxy from scratch, star by star, in the quiet darkness of an unformed universe. This early, frantic building process is entirely silent, yet it requires an immense, continuous transfer of ancient cosmic energy. We must pause to contemplate the incredible, undeniable truth of where the building blocks for this new brain actually come from. The renowned cosmologist Carl Sagan frequently reminded us that to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. The same is absolutely true for the human mind. The delicate carbon molecules forming the walls of those brand new neurons, the iron carrying oxygen in the microscopic blood vessels, the calcium building the intricate chemical channels that will one day fire a thought. All of these elements are infinitely older than the Earth itself. They were forged billions of years ago in the crushing gravitational pressure of ancient stellar cores. When those massive primordial stars violently exploded in magnificent supernovas, they scattered their precious heavy elements across the vast freezing emptiness of the cosmos. Eventually, over billions of years of silent, swirling gravity, those exact atoms found their way to a quiet blue planet, entered the biological food chain, and were lovingly gathered to build the fragile brain of a growing infant. The birth of human consciousness is the breathtaking culmination of a patient cosmic journey. As the physical structure of the brain grows, folding in upon itself to maximize its surface area within the tight confines of the skull, a second, even more profound transition occurs. The billions of new neurons must begin to communicate. They slowly extend tiny branching structures, reaching out into the dark to touch their neighbors, seeking connection. When the very first electrical impulses begin to travel across these microscopic gaps, something truly miraculous happens. The lights of consciousness slowly begin to flicker on. It is not a sudden, overwhelming flash, but a gentle, gradual awakening, like the soft, warm glow of a sunrise, slowly illuminating a sleeping landscape. The vast, empty universe is suddenly experiencing itself from a brand new, highly localized point of view. This quiet dawn of awareness is the exact biological mirror image of the near-death experience. Just as the dying brain gently and slowly disassembles its connections, shutting down the peripheral vision and softening the loud noises of the world into a profound, welcoming silence, the waking embryonic brain is doing the exact opposite, carefully weaving those incredibly complex connections together. Understanding this magnificent biological symmetry completely transforms our perspective on the fragile nature of human existence. When a person reaches the absolute limit of physical survival and experiences the vivid, rushing tunnel of light and the overwhelming feeling of universal connection, they are literally experiencing the quiet, systematic reversal of their own biological birth. The massive surge of powerful neurochemicals that bathes the dying brain is remarkably similar to the potent chemical environment that helps shape the rapidly growing embryonic mind. Nature, in its infinite compassionate wisdom, uses the exact same fundamental biological tools to gently guide us out of the physical world as it used to bring us into it. The ending is not a harsh, terrifying break from reality. It is a perfectly symmetrical, deeply poetic closing of a grand biological circle. The deep peace reported by survivors of the dark threshold is simply the profound, ancient memory of the quiet, comforting darkness from which they originally emerged. Let us think deeply about the staggering scale of cosmic time required to achieve this brief, beautiful flash of awareness. The universe is estimated to be roughly 13,800,000,000 years old. For the vast, overwhelming majority of that immense span of time, the cosmos was a place of swirling gas, burning stars, and silent, dead rocks. It took billions of years of slow, patient biological evolution on this specific planet to produce a cerebral cortex complex enough to ask questions about its own existence, to wonder about the stars, and to feel the deep, transcendent emotion we call love. Your brain is the absolute pinnacle of that ancient, majestic process. You are the universe's most advanced instrument of self-discovery. When that magnificent instrument finally begins to fail, it does not do so randomly or chaotically. It shuts down with the exact same breathtaking elegance and absolute precision with which it was originally built. The brilliant, welcoming light, seen at the edge of life, is the universe honoring its own incredibly hard work, providing a safe, chemically cushioned harbor for the fading mind. It is a gentle reminder that the energy which animated you cannot be destroyed. We are incredibly fortunate to live in an era where modern neuroscience and advanced medical technology allow us to peer so deeply into these profound existential mysteries. Today, we can trace the exact chemical pathways of a thought, map the beautiful electrical storms of a deep memory, and understand the precise biological mechanisms that create the illusion of a separate, isolated self. But this detailed scientific understanding does not reduce the profound wonder of the human experience. It elevates it to a truly cosmic scale. To know that our deepest spiritual feelings, our moments of transcendent peace, and our quiet encounters with the infinite all have a firm, measurable basis in our biology, is to realize that the universe itself is fundamentally geared toward connection and harmony. The physical laws that govern the gentle orbit of the moon also govern the quiet, peaceful fading of your consciousness. There is no separation between you and the endless, beautiful mystery of the night sky. As we continue our shared, contemplative journey through the vast, uncharted territories of human consciousness, we must remain open to the beautiful idea that we are entirely part of a much larger, infinite narrative. The near-death experience shows us that the boundaries we draw between life and death, between the self and the universe, are incredibly fragile, permeable illusions created by a temporary biological machine. When the machine stops, the illusion fades, and the ancient, quiet truth remains. But our exploration into the deep mechanics of the mind is not over yet. We must now turn our gentle curiosity toward the fascinating question of how these deeply transformative experiences are interpreted across different human cultures, and why the specific, comforting visions of the dying brain vary so beautifully depending on the life the individual has lived. We will continue to venture forward together, mapping the rich, diverse landscapes of human belief with respectful awe, intellectual humility, and an endless, gentle desire to understand the magnificent cosmos that resides within each of us. Have you ever wondered why the quiet, final visions of the fading mind are so incredibly specific, so deeply personal to the unique life that a single human being has lived? We have spent our time together exploring the magnificent universal biology of the near-death experience, mapping the exact chemical cascades and the beautiful electrical storms that accompany the end of physical life. We know that the human brain, regardless of where a person is born or what language they speak, is built from the exact same ancient stardust. We all share the exact same complex architecture of 86 billion delicate neurons, and we all experience the exact same massive flood of powerful, pain-relieving endorphins when the biological machinery reaches its absolute limit. Yet, when cosmic travelers return from the very edge of the vast, silent unknown, the specific stories they tell are breathtakingly diverse. A person raised in one specific cultural tradition might report a profoundly moving encounter with a recognized religious figure, radiating unconditional love. Another individual, living on the opposite side of the globe, might describe a gentle, welcoming reunion with long-deceased ancestors in a lush, infinitely green valley. Still others report speaking with beings of pure, formless light, or simply floating in a deep, quiet space of absolute, welcoming nothingness. This is a profound scientific paradox that invites our deepest, most respectful wonder. How can a universally identical biological shutdown sequence produce such a wildly diverse array of highly specific, deeply personal subjective experiences? To truly understand this beautiful mystery, we must look at the human brain not just as a cold, calculating biological computer, but as the most sophisticated, incredibly creative storyteller in the entire known universe. For your entire waking life, your brain has been acting as a highly sensitive, selective filter. In every single second of your existence, you are bombarded by an unimaginably vast amount of sensory data. The exact temperature of the air, the chaotic noise of a crowded room, the complex shifting patterns of light bouncing off every physical object around you. If your conscious mind had to process all of this raw, unfiltered information simultaneously, it would be completely paralyzed by the sheer, staggering volume of the cosmic noise. To allow you to survive and navigate the physical world, your brain must constantly edit, interpret, and translate this data into a coherent, highly simplified narrative. It builds a subjective model of reality based entirely on your past experiences, your deeply held beliefs, and the specific cultural environment in which you were gently raised. This meaning-making engine does not simply stop working when the human heart stops beating. In fact, in the profound silence of a near-death state, this storytelling mechanism actually goes into a magnificent, unprecedented hyperdrive. When the default mode network slowly powers down and the heavy, restrictive boundaries of the ego begin to gracefully dissolve, the fading mind is suddenly flooded with the raw, abstract, deeply overwhelming sensation of absolute cosmic unity and boundless, infinite love. The ancient survival chemistry of the brain produces a feeling of peace so vast and so profound that the ordinary waking human consciousness simply does not have the capacity to process it in its pure, raw form. The human mind struggles to comprehend the concept of absolute infinity. It cannot easily grasp a love that has no physical source, or a light that casts no earthly shadows. Therefore, the brain, acting with incredible biological compassion, desperately reaches into its vast, meticulously organized archives of long-term memory. It searches through decades of stored cultural symbols, personal archetypes, and deeply cherished religious beliefs to find the perfect, most comforting visual language to translate the unimaginable. The brain takes the raw, formless sensation of the infinite universe and carefully wraps it in the familiar, gentle shapes of the specific symbols that the dying individual associates with ultimate safety, ultimate authority, and ultimate peace. Imagine, if you will, a single, incredibly powerful beam of pure, ancient white starlight traveling silently across the freezing vacuum of deep space for billions of years. When that magnificent light finally strikes the precisely angled glass of a dense optical prism, the uniform white beam is instantly shattered and scattered into a breathtaking, incredibly complex rainbow of wildly different, vibrant colors. The pure, formless biological shutdown of the near-death state is that ancient, traveling starlight. It is the exact same fundamental, universal energy for every single human being on this planet. But the lived experience of the individual, their specific culture, their personal history, their deeply held faith, and their unique human memories, acts as the dense, complex glass prism. When the raw, universal neurochemistry passes through the unique, highly localized filter of a single human life, it bursts outward into a magnificently detailed, culturally specific vision. The phenomenon is entirely biological in its origin, but it is deeply, beautifully human in its final, subjective expression. The brain paints the final masterpiece of a lifetime, using the only colors it has ever known. The revered astrophysicist Carl Sagan often spoke with profound, quiet awe about the incredible diversity of the cosmos, reminding us that the universe is not a monolithic, boring expanse, but a deeply complex, endlessly creative environment. We see this exact same beautiful, staggering diversity reflected perfectly in the inner universe of the fading human mind. When we carefully study the varied reports of near-death survivors from completely different parts of the world, we are not looking at conflicting stories that prove the experiences are merely random hallucinations. We are actually looking at the magnificent adaptable resilience of human consciousness. A deeply religious person sees the divine figures they have worshipped their entire life because their brain utilizes those specific, powerful neural pathways to process the overwhelming sensation of biological peace. A secular individual might instead experience the profound, quiet beauty of the natural world, or simply feel a deep, abiding connection to the vast, swirling cosmos itself. The underlying biological mechanism is exactly the same. It is only the external symbolic clothing that changes to suit the specific needs of the fragile, transitioning mind. This realization should fill us with a profound sense of intellectual humility and respectful wonder. It shows us with absolute scientific clarity that the human brain is fundamentally, evolutionarily designed to protect us from the primal terror of the unknown. Nature has equipped us with an incredibly complex, deeply compassionate biological mechanism that automatically translates the terrifying reality of physical failure into a gentle, familiar, and welcoming narrative. The brain ensures that as the cosmic traveler takes their final, quiet steps into the dark, they are not surrounded by alien, incomprehensible chaos, but by the very things they have loved and trusted the most during their brief time on Earth. The visions are a biological safe harbor, a quiet, meticulously constructed psychological sanctuary where the conscious mind can rest peacefully while the physical body gently dismantles itself. It is a beautiful, deeply touching reminder that even in our absolute final moments, we are fundamentally creatures of deep meaning and profound connection. We must pause here in the quiet, contemplative space of this scientific understanding to reflect on what this truly means for our shared human journey. The incredibly specific, varied visions of the near-death state might initially seem to highlight the vast differences between our many earthly cultures and individual beliefs. But when viewed through the unifying, rigorous lens of modern neuroscience, they actually underscore our deep, unbreakable biological brotherhood. Beneath the colorful, specific details of the visions, beneath the different faces, the varied landscapes, and the specific religious symbols, there is a single, beautiful, universally shared human experience of transition. We all share the exact same profound need for comfort in the face of the infinite mystery. We all share the exact same biological hardware capable of generating immense, boundless peace. And we are all traveling toward the exact same quiet, ancient silence. The culturally specific visions do not divide us. They powerfully unite us in our shared human vulnerability and our collective biological capacity for experiencing the sublime. Consider the sheer, staggering scale of the human story on this tiny blue planet. For hundreds of thousands of years, countless billions of human beings have looked up at the exact same distant stars, wondering about the same profound mysteries of existence, and eventually walking the same quiet path into the dark. Every single one of those billions of unique individuals carried a completely different universe of memories, beliefs, and experiences within the microscopic spaces of their own skull. Yet the vast ancient cosmos provided every single one of them with the exact same merciful, chemically cushioned transition. The universe is incredibly vast, and its physical laws are absolute, but it is not cruel. The gentle, beautiful machinery of the dying brain is absolute proof that the cosmos allows for profound grace at the very end of the journey. We are not simply deleted from the universe. We are carefully, poetically translated back into the ancient energy from which we originally came. As we continue to walk together along this quiet, endlessly fascinating path of scientific discovery, we must remain constantly open to the profound philosophical implications of what we are learning. The brain's magnificent ability to create such deeply meaningful, culturally specific realities at the edge of life challenges us to question the very nature of reality itself. If the human mind can construct such a vivid, hyper-realistic, deeply comforting universe, entirely from its own fading chemical reserves, what does that tell us about the conscious reality we experience every single day? We are slowly, carefully realizing that the mind is not just a passive receiver of cosmic information. It is an active, brilliant, incredibly powerful creator of meaning. But our exploration into the deep, quiet mysteries of human consciousness is far from complete. We must now turn our gentle curiosity toward the profound, undeniable impact these experiences have, not just on the survivors themselves, but on the families, the medical professionals, and the entire human cultures that listen to their incredible stories. We will continue to venture forward together, embracing the vast, beautiful unknown with respectful awe, quiet humility, and an endless, gentle desire to truly understand the magnificent cosmos that resides within each of us. Have you ever realized that a single profound psychological event, occurring entirely within the quietest confines of a single fading human mind, has the undeniable power to ripple outward and fundamentally alter the fabric of an entire community? We often think of the near-death experience as a solitary journey, a deeply personal voyage taken by one fragile consciousness into the vast, ancient mystery of the unknown. In its immediate biological execution, it absolutely is. The incredibly complex chemical cascades and beautiful electrical storms are confined to the microscopic spaces between the 86 billion neurons of one specific brain. But human beings are not isolated machines floating aimlessly in the cold vacuum of space. We are an intensely social, deeply interconnected species, bound together by an intricate web of language, empathy, and shared emotion. When a cosmic traveler returns from the quiet threshold of biological failure, carrying the profound memory of boundless peace and welcoming light, they do not keep that immense, transformative treasure to themselves. They share it. And in that simple, beautiful act of sharing, the private neurological event becomes a powerful, collective catalyst for human evolution. This is the profound scientific and sociological paradox we must now explore with respectful awe. How the quietest moment of an individual's life can create a magnificent echoing shock wave that permanently changes the way an entire culture understands its own mortality. To truly understand this magnificent ripple effect, we must first look at the very front lines of the biological boundary between life and death. Consider the incredibly dedicated medical professionals, the doctors and nurses who spend their waking lives operating in the loud, frantic world of modern emergency medicine. For years, their intensive medical training has taught them to view the human body primarily as a highly complex mechanical system, an engine that must be kept running at all absolute costs. They fight desperately against the creeping darkness, utilizing every tool of modern science to restore the flow of oxygen-rich blood and restart the silent heart. But when they successfully pull a patient back from the edge of the vast abyss, and that patient awakens not with primal terror, but with an unshakable, profound, and deeply gentle peace, the medical professionals themselves are often fundamentally transformed. Hearing the vivid accounts of the quiet, welcoming light and the overwhelming feeling of universal connection challenges their strictly mechanistic view of human existence. It reminds them, in the most deeply moving way possible, that they are not just repairing broken biological machines. They are the dedicated, compassionate caretakers of conscious universes. This profound transfer of peace from the patient to the healer is not magic. It is a beautifully measurable biological process rooted in the deep evolutionary architecture of the human brain. Deep within the cerebral cortex, we possess a specialized network of cells, known to modern neuroscience as mirror neurons. These highly sensitive, ancient biological structures are entirely responsible for our human capacity for deep empathy. When you watch another person experience profound joy, or when you listen to them describe a deeply moving, transformative encounter with the infinite, your own mirror neurons automatically fire in the exact same intricate patterns. Your brain literally simulates the emotional reality of the other person. Therefore, when a survivor of a near-death experience speaks with quiet conviction about the total absence of fear at the end of life, the brains of the listeners physically synchronize with that profound peace. The massive, beautiful chemical reset that occurred within the dying individual is partially replicated in the minds of those who hear the story. The absolute terror of human mortality, deeply hardwired into our collective nervous system for hundreds of thousands of years, is gently, systematically dismantled through the simple, ancient power of shared human narrative. Imagine the incredible, staggering scale of the physical universe and the powerful, invisible forces that connect its most distant corners. When two incredibly massive black holes collide in the freezing depths of deep space, the violent cosmic event is not contained to that single region. The immense transfer of physical energy sends invisible gravitational waves rippling outward at the exact speed of light, gently stretching and squeezing the very fabric of space-time across billions of light years. In a beautifully poetic, completely symmetrical way, the profound psychological shift that occurs during a near-death experience sends invisible, emotional, gravitational waves rippling through the fabric of a human family. When a grieving mother or a terrified child listens to their loved one describe the absolute, welcoming beauty of the quiet dark, their own crushing existential anxiety is profoundly softened. The fear of the unknown is replaced by a gentle, comforting awe. The cosmic traveler has inadvertently brought back a precious piece of the infinite light to illuminate the earthly darkness of those they love. The biological shutdown sequence of one individual becomes a source of deep, lasting psychological healing for many. As these deeply moving, transformative stories are passed down carefully from generation to generation. They begin to fundamentally shape the overarching spiritual and philosophical narratives of entire human cultures. For thousands of years, long before the invention of the modern electroencephalogram or the advanced magnetic resonance imaging scanner, human beings have been returning from the very edge of biological life with these exact same stories of the rushing tunnel, the boundless light, and the quiet, ancient presence. These shared universal experiences are the incredibly fertile biological soil from which many of our deepest, most cherished human myths and religious traditions have grown. They are the undeniable cross-cultural proof that the human brain is fundamentally designed to find meaning and profound peace in the face of the ultimate mystery. The stories serve as a collective psychological safe harbor, a shared cultural architecture that helps our fragile species navigate the difficult reality of our own undeniable mortality. They are an ancient, beautiful testament to our shared biological heritage, reminding us that regardless of the language we speak, we all share the exact same gentle, chemically cushioned journey into the quiet night. The renowned astrophysicist Carl Sagan often spoke with profound reverence about the deeply interconnected nature of the cosmos, reminding us that we are a way for the universe to know itself. But we must expand that beautiful scientific thought to recognize that we do not undertake this grand project of cosmic self-discovery entirely alone. We are a vast, incredibly complex network of conscious observers, sharing our data, our deep fears, and our most profound revelations with one another. When one single human brain briefly touches the infinite reality of its own fundamental nature, and then translates that overwhelming experience into a story that can be shared, the entire collective network of human consciousness is enriched and elevated. We are not just localized collections of ancient star stuff. We are a massive, interconnected biological web of shared meaning through human storytelling. The near-death experience ceases to be just a neurological anomaly and becomes a vital part of our evolutionary journey. It is a quiet whisper from the cosmos, echoing through our culture, reminding us to live with deep empathy, respectful wonder, and an absolute absence of fear. We must pause and sit quietly with the immense, breathtaking beauty of this scientific reality. To understand that the profound, life-altering impact of these stories is rooted entirely in the measurable biology of mirror neurons, evolutionary psychology, and the deep human need for social connection, does not diminish their immense spiritual power. It magnifies it to a truly universal scale. Science is not the enemy of wonder. It is the absolute greatest tool we possess for uncovering the true, magnificent depth of the mysteries that surround us. The natural, physical universe, with its billions of ancient galaxies and its incredibly complex, compassionate biological laws, is already more beautiful, more intricate, and more deeply merciful than any simple supernatural story we could ever invent. The human brain, built from scattered atoms forged in the fiery hearts of dying stars, has evolved the incredible capacity to not only experience profound, boundless peace at the end of its physical journey, but to actively share that peace, ensuring that the warm, comforting light lives on in the minds of others long after the individual electrical storms have finally faded into the quiet dark. As we continue our slow, contemplative walk along this fascinating path of scientific exploration, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of a new, incredibly exciting frontier in human understanding. The profound reality of the near-death experience and its powerful ripple effect across human culture naturally leads us to ask even deeper questions about the fundamental physical nature of consciousness itself. If the human mind can experience such profound, unbounded awareness when the physical brain is demonstrably failing, what does that truly say about the relationship between physical matter and subjective experience? We will continue to venture forward together into this deeply mysterious territory, exploring the absolute cutting edge of modern biology and the ultimate incredible destiny of human awareness. We will embrace the vast, endless unknown with quiet humility, respectful awe, and a gentle, insatiable desire to understand the beautiful, ancient cosmos that resides within and connects every single one of us. Have you ever wondered how a completely dark, silent collection of physical matter inside your skull can somehow generate the incredibly rich, vibrant, and deeply emotional experience of simply being alive? This is the ultimate scientific paradox, a profound mystery that sits at the very foundation of human existence. For centuries, brilliant scientists and philosophers have carefully mapped the physical brain, tracing the complex electrical pathways and identifying the precise chemical messengers that control our heart rate, our breathing, and our physical movements. We know exactly how the optical nerve translates incoming photons of light into electrical signals, and we know exactly which regions of the cerebral cortex process those signals into the shapes and colors we see. But there is a massive, incredibly profound gap in our scientific understanding, known to modern researchers as the hard problem of consciousness. We can easily explain the mechanical functions of the brain, but we have absolutely no definitive idea how those physical, mechanical processes actually give rise to subjective, internal experience. How does the movement of sodium and potassium ions across a microscopic cellular membrane create the undeniable, overwhelming feeling of love, or the quiet, profound awe we experience when looking up at a starry night sky? When we begin to truly investigate the near-death experience, this central paradox is amplified to a breathtaking, cosmic degree. We are forced to respectfully ask, if consciousness is nothing more than the temporary byproduct of a functioning biological machine, how can the mind experience such boundless, infinitely expanded awareness at the exact moment that the physical machine is comprehensively failing? To even begin to navigate this vast, beautiful mystery, we must be willing to look beyond the classical, everyday laws of physics that govern falling apples and orbiting planets. We must venture down into the incredibly strange, counterintuitive realm of quantum mechanics, where the fundamental rules of reality become deeply interconnected and profoundly beautiful. For decades, traditional neuroscience has treated the human brain as a complex but fundamentally classical computer, where neurons act as simple biological switches. But in recent years, visionary scientists, including the renowned theoretical physicist Sir Roger Penrose and the dedicated anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, have bravely proposed a much more expansive, magnificent theory. They suggest that human consciousness is not simply a product of classical chemistry, but is actually rooted in the deep, microscopic quantum vibrations occurring inside tiny, ancient structural proteins called microtubules, which are found inside every single neuron in your brain. These incredibly delicate microscopic tubes are not just structural scaffolding. They might actually be acting as biological quantum computers, tapping directly into the fundamental, vibrating fabric of the universe itself, translating the silent whispers of the cosmos into the rich tapestry of human thought. Imagine, for a quiet moment, the sheer, staggering scale of the quantum universe. At the absolute smallest, most fundamental level of physical reality, particles do not exist in fixed, rigid locations. They exist as vast, spreading waves of pure probability, intimately connected to one another across immense, unimaginable distances, through a profound phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. In this deeply strange, microscopic realm, physical boundaries begin to completely lose their meaning, and everything is fundamentally woven together into a single, continuous, indivisible tapestry of ancient energy. If the biological foundation of human consciousness truly operates at this fundamental quantum level, it radically, beautifully, transforms our understanding of the near-death experience. When the massive, classical, electrical storms of the fading brain begin to quiet down, and the heavy, demanding structures of the human ego gently dissolve, the underlying quantum vibrations of the mind might not instantly disappear. Instead, freed from the noisy, chaotic interference of daily biological survival, this delicate quantum coherence might dramatically expand, allowing the fading mind to experience a profound, literal connection to the deep underlying structure of the cosmos. This magnificent, challenging scientific hypothesis provides a deeply beautiful, rigorous framework for understanding exactly why cosmic travelers so frequently report the overwhelming sensation of existing everywhere at once and knowing everything simultaneously during their time in the quiet dark. If the human mind is fundamentally a quantum phenomenon, then the heavy, rigid boundaries of space and time that define our waking earthly existence are merely biological illusions, temporary filters created by the brain to help us navigate the physical world. When those fragile biological filters finally, gracefully fail, the consciousness simply expands back into the vast, timeless quantum field from which it originally emerged. The renowned theoretical physicist Max Planck famously stated that he regarded consciousness as fundamental, and that we cannot simply get behind consciousness, because everything we talk about fundamentally postulates consciousness. The near-death experience might simply be the ultimate, profound biological proof of this deeply held scientific intuition. It is a quiet, majestic return to the primordial state of existence, a gentle dissolving of the temporary physical wave back into the infinite, eternal ocean. Let us pause together, taking a deep, quiet breath, and fully absorb the staggering poetic beauty of this emerging scientific perspective. It tells us that the feeling of absolute unconditional love and boundless universal peace, reported by millions of near-death survivors, is not merely a random, chaotic hallucination produced by a dying, oxygen-starved organ. Rather, it is a genuine, profound encounter with the fundamental, connective fabric of the universe itself. Love, in this magnificent cosmic context, is not just a fragile human emotion. It is the subjective, deeply personal translation of quantum entanglement. It is the undeniable, physical reality that at the most fundamental level of existence, there is absolutely no separation between you, the distant burning stars, the ancient swirling galaxies, and every other living, breathing creature on this tiny blue planet. The near-death experience strips away the heavy, isolating illusion of our daily physical separation, and briefly, beautifully allows the individual mind to fully remember its ancient, infinite nature. We are all deeply, invisibly connected in a cosmic dance of energy and light. Think deeply about what this means for your own beautiful, brief journey through this physical life. Every single time you look up at the vast, quiet expanse of the night sky, you are not just a tiny, insignificant observer looking at something massive and separate. You are the universe looking out at itself. Your ability to feel wonder, to ask profound questions, and to experience deep, quiet awe is the absolute highest, most complex achievement of almost 14 billion years of cosmic evolution. The brain inside your skull, built entirely from ancient, scattered stardust gathered over eons, has somehow achieved the incredible, miraculous ability to truly comprehend its own majestic origins. And when the time finally comes for that magnificent biological instrument to gently power down, the conscious awareness that it supported does not necessarily fall into a cold, terrifying, empty void. According to the deepest, most beautiful possibilities of modern quantum biology, it simply transitions. It expands, it reconnects, and it quietly merges back into the infinite, vibrating melody of the cosmos, returning the borrowed energy back to the vast, silent source. As we walk quietly together along this endless, beautiful path of discovery, we are slowly realizing that the final biological transition is not a harsh ending, but a gentle unfolding. The near-death experience is a beautifully orchestrated symphony of ancient neurochemistry, cascading electrical storms, and perhaps the deep quantum vibrations of the universe itself. But our contemplative exploration is still not finished. To fully grasp the immense power of this journey, we must now gently turn our attention to the physical reality of the return. What actually happens in the fragile human brain when the incredibly profound, infinite experience is abruptly cut short, and the cosmic traveler is pulled forcefully back into the heavy, demanding confines of a waking, breathing, physical body. We will continue to venture forward together, mapping the incredibly beautiful return to earthly reality with quiet humility, deep empathy, and an endless, gentle desire to truly understand the magnificent cosmos that resides within each of us. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be forcefully pulled back from the absolute, infinite edge of eternity, suddenly and dramatically compressed back into the heavy, demanding confines of a fragile physical body? We have spent our time together mapping the magnificent, quiet expansion of consciousness as it gently leaves the earthly realm, floating peacefully into the vast, ancient mystery of the unknown. We have explored the beautiful, chemically cushioned fading of the human ego, and the profound, awe-inspiring possibility that the mind fundamentally merges with the underlying quantum fabric of the cosmos itself. But the near-death experience, by its very definition, is not a permanent departure. It is an incredibly brief, deeply transformative visit. To truly understand the full, staggering magnitude of this cosmic journey, we must now turn our respectful attention to the exact moment of the return. We must explore the profound neurological shock that occurs when the infinite, unbounded awareness is abruptly commanded to inhabit a finite physical form once again. This is a scientific paradox that challenges our understanding of human resilience. How does a mind that has touched the absolute boundless universe survive the sudden heavy gravity of waking up? To comprehend this dramatic biological reversal, we must look at the chaotic, highly energetic environment of a modern medical emergency. While the cosmic traveler is experiencing profound, uninterrupted peace and boundless, welcoming light in the quiet dark of their fading mind, the physical reality outside their body is a scene of intense, desperate human effort. Dedicated medical professionals are utilizing every advanced tool of modern science to reverse the biological shutdown sequence. When a sudden, powerful electrical shock from a defibrillator successfully resets the chaotic rhythm of a stopped heart, or when potent, highly concentrated doses of synthetic adrenaline are pushed directly into the bloodstream, the physical body experiences a massive, violent biological reboot. The heart, which had been perfectly still, suddenly contracts with immense, renewed force. In that exact fraction of a second, a massive, forceful tidal wave of freshly oxygenated blood is violently pushed up through the carotid arteries, crashing back into the delicate, oxygen-starved tissues of the cerebral cortex. This is not the slow, gentle, peaceful awakening of a normal morning. It is a rapid, biologically explosive return to earthly reality, as this massive wave of oxygen-rich blood abruptly floods the intricate, microscopic valleys of the brain. The millions of neurons that were slowly, peacefully powering down are suddenly shocked back into frantic, immediate electrical activity. The profound, quiet silence of the near-death state is instantly shattered. The temporoparietal junction, which had gracefully released its firm grip on the physical coordinates of the self, is rapidly rebooted, forcefully pulling the expanded floating consciousness back down into the heavy, restrictive gravity of the physical form. The cosmic traveler, who only a mere fraction of a second earlier was experiencing the sensation of existing everywhere in the universe simultaneously, is suddenly undeniably slammed back into a single, highly localized point of perspective just behind their eyes. The sensation is frequently described by survivors as incredibly heavy, deeply restrictive, and profoundly disorienting. It is as if a vast, magnificent ocean has been suddenly and forcefully poured back into a tiny, fragile glass. The infinite has been instantly compressed back into the finite, and the sheer biological weight of that sudden compression is staggering. Along with the sudden, heavy return of physical localization comes the immediate, overwhelming resurgence of the default mode network. This highly demanding neural engine, which generates our personal, isolated identity and our everyday, waking anxieties, roars back to life with a renewed supply of oxygen. The rigid, isolating walls of the human ego, which had so beautifully and peacefully dissolved into the vast cosmic ocean, are instantly, aggressively rebuilt. And with the sudden return of the ego comes the immediate, harsh reality of physical sensation. The massive, compassionate flood of natural endorphins that had completely washed away all earthly suffering is rapidly metabolized and cleared from the nervous system. In its place, the harsh, sharp pain of the physical trauma, the broken ribs from chest compressions, the sting of medical interventions, the profound biological exhaustion of a failing body, rushes back into the conscious awareness with terrifying speed. The transition from the ultimate, unconditional peace of the cosmic light to the loud, chaotic, and physically painful environment of an intensive care unit is arguably the most dramatic, jarring psychological shift a human being can possibly endure. We must pause here, in the quiet space of our shared contemplation, to marvel at the incredible, undeniable resilience of the human mind. How does the fragile brain, having just experienced the absolute boundless love of the universe, not completely shatter when it is forced back into a world of pain, noise, and strict physical limitations? The beautiful scientific answer lies in the incredible evolutionary adaptability of our biology. The brain does not simply erase the magnificent infinite journey it just took. Even as the ordinary waking circuits come aggressively back online, the deep, profound memory of the quiet light is permanently, fiercely protected by the hippocampus. The cosmic traveler returns to a world of heavy gravity and physical pain, but they bring a piece of the infinite peace back with them. They have been permanently, beautifully marked by their brief encounter with the ancient, swirling cosmos. The renowned astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson often reminds us that we are intimately connected to the universe, not just metaphorically, but biologically and atomically. The near-death survivor returns as living, breathing proof of this profound scientific truth, carrying the quiet, undeniable memory of our shared, infinite origins. Imagine a magnificent, glowing meteorite that has traveled silently through the freezing, absolute zero vacuum of deep space for billions of years. For almost the entire history of the cosmos, it has known nothing but profound, empty silence and boundless, frictionless movement. But when its ancient orbit finally intersects with the trajectory of our tiny blue planet, it suddenly slams into the dense, chaotic layers of the Earth's atmosphere. The sudden, immense friction of atmospheric entry causes the ancient rock to blaze with terrifying heat and brilliant light. It is violently compressed, rapidly melted, and physically transformed by the brutal, sudden return to a world of gravity and physical resistance. Yet, when it finally strikes the solid ground, cooling in the quiet aftermath of its fiery descent, it still contains the ancient, pristine elements forged in the heart of distant, dying stars. The individual returning from a near-death experience has survived an exact psychological equivalent of that fiery atmospheric re-entry. They have been pulled from the frictionless, infinite void and plunged back into the heavy, demanding atmosphere of human existence. They are burned by the transition, disoriented by the sudden weight, but they retain the precious cosmic material at their absolute core. The return to the physical body is not merely a medical success story. It is the beginning of a massive, lifelong psychological integration process. The survivor must now figure out exactly how to live a normal, everyday human life, while carrying the profound, undeniable knowledge that the everyday human world is merely a fragile, temporary illusion. They must walk through crowded, noisy streets, participate in the mundane tasks of physical survival, and interact with people who have never seen the quiet, welcoming light, all while holding the vast, ancient mystery of the universe in their deeply changed minds. The brain has been permanently rewired for boundless empathy and profound universal peace. But it must continue to operate a body that still feels pain and still faces the chaotic, unpredictable nature of earthly life. The individual becomes a human bridge between two completely different realities: the infinite, peaceful ocean of the near-death state, and the demanding reality of the physical world. As we continue to explore this profound beautiful transition. We must approach these stories with deep, respectful empathy. The people who have returned from the quiet edge of existence are brave cosmic explorers who have mapped the absolute furthest boundaries of human consciousness. Their experiences teach us that the human brain is an incredibly sophisticated instrument capable of tuning into the profound frequencies of the cosmos itself. We will continue to venture forward together, exploring how the profound wisdom of the quiet dark is integrated into the bright light of our daily lives. We will embrace the endless mystery with respectful awe, quiet humility, and an endless, gentle desire to understand the magnificent cosmos within us. Have you ever wondered how a human being actually returns to the mundane, everyday routine of paying bills, washing dishes, and navigating earthly relationships after having their entire conscious awareness expanded to the absolute, infinite edge of the cosmos? This is a profound, quiet paradox of the human experience following a near-death event. We have explored the massive biological shock of the return, the sudden heavy compression of infinite awareness back into the fragile physical body. But the true, lasting miracle of this cosmic journey is not just the survival of the physical form. It is the magnificent, decades-long process of psychological and physiological integration that follows. The cosmic traveler does not simply pack away their profound memory of the quiet, welcoming light like an old photograph in a dusty album. Instead, that radiant, ancient memory becomes the new, fundamental operating system for their entire biological and emotional life. To truly understand this gentle, lifelong metamorphosis, we must look beyond the initial electrical storms of the brain and explore the incredibly complex, beautiful science of how the human nervous system permanently adapts to carrying a piece of the infinite universe within its earthly shell. Deep within your physical body, operating entirely below the level of your conscious awareness, lies the autonomic nervous system. For the vast majority of human beings, this incredibly sensitive biological network is constantly, quietly fluctuating between a state of restful peace and a state of high alert, carefully managing the slow drip of stress hormones, like cortisol, to keep us safe in a chaotic, unpredictable world. But medical researchers studying those who have returned from the quiet threshold have discovered a magnificent, measurable shift in this fundamental biological rhythm. Following a near-death experience, the autonomic nervous system frequently undergoes a permanent, deeply calming recalibration. The baseline level of physiological stress drops dramatically. The individual's heart rate variability, a key medical indicator of nervous system resilience and deep physical relaxation, often increases to levels typically seen only in dedicated, lifelong practitioners of deep meditation. The brain, having survived the ultimate terrifying biological failure and discovered only boundless, unconditional love in the dark, effectively turns off the deeply ingrained evolutionary alarms. The survivor walks through the loud, demanding physical world, anchored by an unshakable, quiet peace that originates at the very deepest cellular level of their physical being. We must pause to respectfully contemplate the sheer, staggering magnitude of this long-term biological transformation. Modern science is just now beginning to unlock the beautiful, intricate mysteries of epigenetics, the incredible process by which our environment and our deepest psychological experiences can actually alter the way our genetic code is physically expressed. When a cosmic traveler brings back the profound, undeniable memory of absolute cosmic unity, that immensely powerful psychological state does not just float ephemerally in the mind. It cascades downward through the biological architecture, sending new, deeply calming chemical signals to the cells. The massive, beautiful surge of positive, connective emotions literally has the power to turn down the genetic switches associated with chronic inflammation and deep physical stress, while gently turning on the pathways associated with cellular healing and biological harmony. The infinite, peaceful vision of the quiet dark is literally written into the physical tissue of the survivor over the course of years and decades. They are not just psychologically changed. They are biologically remade by their brief, wondrous encounter with the vast, ancient universe. Imagine, if you will, the incredibly slow, patient formation of a completely new planetary system in the freezing depths of deep space. When an ancient, massive star finally reaches the end of its life and explodes in a magnificent supernova, it scatters its heavy, complex elements across the quiet, empty void. For millions of years, those scattered, glowing fragments drift silently through the dark. Eventually, under the gentle, persistent pull of gravity, they begin to gather together, slowly forming a brand new sun surrounded by vibrant, rocky worlds capable of supporting complex life. The near-death experience acts exactly like that ancient, transformative supernova within the inner universe of a single human life. The old, rigid, fearful structure of the individual's previous identity is completely blown apart by the massive surge of survival chemistry and the overwhelming vision of the infinite light. When they return to their waking life, they must patiently, quietly gather those scattered, transformed pieces of their identity and build a completely new, beautiful inner world. The elements are the exact same, containing the same memories and physical form, but they have been fundamentally rearranged by the gravity of their profound encounter with the cosmos. This beautiful, slow process of inner reorganization often leads to a profound, measurable shift in how the cosmic traveler interacts with every other living creature on this tiny, blue planet. We naturally think of the brain as the sole, commanding center of human consciousness, but modern neurocardiology has revealed a magnificent, quiet truth about the human heart. The heart possesses its own complex, intrinsic nervous system, a highly sophisticated network of roughly 40,000 sensory neurons that constantly communicate with the brain. In individuals who have returned from the edge of the vast unknown, doctors frequently observe a state of profound, sustained coherence between the rhythmic beating of the heart and the electrical waves of the brain. The deep, unshakable memory of universal love and boundless peace aligns the entire physical organism into a state of beautiful, highly efficient resonance. The survivor does not just remember the welcoming light. Their entire biological system constantly, quietly broadcasts that calm, coherent frequency outward into the physical world. Their deep, internal peace literally becomes a measurable physical presence that gently influences everyone around them. Yet, this magnificent biological and spiritual expansion is not always an easy, seamless transition. The profound, beautiful paradox of the near-death survivor is that they possess the deep, ancient wisdom of the universe, but they must still communicate using the incredibly limited, fragile tools of human language. How do you accurately describe the sensation of existing everywhere at once, to a friend over a cup of afternoon tea? How do you explain the absolute, undeniable reality of boundless, formless light to a culture that is intensely focused on the acquisition of heavy, physical objects? Many cosmic travelers experience a period of deep, quiet isolation upon their return, struggling to bridge the massive gap of silence between the infinite reality they intimately know and the rigid, fragmented world they are forced to inhabit. They must learn the incredibly delicate art of living simultaneously in two completely different dimensions. They must perform ordinary tasks while their minds quietly, continuously orbit the vast, beautiful mysteries of the infinite cosmos. It is a deeply humbling, deeply magnificent journey of psychological integration that requires immense patience, quiet strength, and an endless reservoir of gentle grace. As we walk quietly together through this beautiful, endless garden of scientific wonder, we are slowly, carefully learning to see our own fragile lives through a vastly different, deeply comforting lens. We do not need to personally cross the terrifying absolute boundary of biological failure to benefit from the profound wisdom brought back by those who have. By listening to their stories with an open, empathetic heart, and by deeply understanding the magnificent, elegant science that underpins their transformative journeys, we can begin to cultivate that exact same quiet peace within our own daily lives. We can learn to look past the loud, chaotic illusions of earthly separation and recognize the deep, ancient, invisible threads that connect us all to the vast, swirling cosmos. But our contemplative exploration into the beautiful twilight of the human mind still has one final, profound chapter to unfold. We must now turn our gentle curiosity toward the ultimate meaning of this journey and explore how the scientific reality of the quiet dark fundamentally changes how we choose to live every single precious, fleeting moment in the bright light of day. We will continue to venture forward together, embracing the vast, beautiful mystery with quiet humility, deep wonder, and an endless, gentle desire to truly understand the magnificent universe that resides within each of us. Have you ever wondered what the ultimate, profound purpose of understanding the absolute end of biological life truly is? And how looking fearlessly into the deep, quiet dark can actually illuminate every single waking second of your brief, beautiful existence on this tiny blue planet? We have spent our time together mapping the magnificent, hidden architecture of the fading human mind. We have explored the beautiful, cascading electrical storms that accompany the final moments, the incredibly compassionate flood of ancient survival neurochemicals that wash away all earthly fear, and the deeply profound, awe-inspiring possibility that human consciousness ultimately expands to merge with the vibrating quantum fabric of the cosmos itself. But the most important revelation of this entire incredible scientific journey is not simply what happens when the human heart finally stops its rhythmic beating. The true, magnificent gift of the near-death experience is what it teaches us about how we should live right now, in this exact fleeting moment, while our 86 billion neurons are still firing brightly, and while our lungs are still drawing in the fresh, sweet air of the physical world. This is the profound paradox that transforms astronomy, neuroscience, and quantum biology from cold, academic subjects into a deeply personal, universally human guide for living a life filled with profound meaning and quiet, unshakable peace. To truly grasp this beautiful, life-altering perspective, we must first deeply internalize the staggering, mathematical improbability of our own existence. The universe, as we currently understand it through the magnificent lenses of modern space telescopes, is estimated to be roughly 13,800,000,000 years old. It contains roughly 2 trillion massive galaxies, each one a swirling island universe holding hundreds of billions of ancient burning stars. For the vast, overwhelming majority of that deep, almost incomprehensible span of cosmic time, the physical universe was an entirely silent place, governed by the blind, mindless forces of gravity, electromagnetism, and nuclear fusion. It took billions of years of slow, patient, chaotic evolution on our specific rocky world to finally produce a biological organism capable of looking up at the night sky and asking profound questions about its own origin. You are the absolute, undeniable pinnacle of that ancient, majestic process. Every single atom of carbon in your muscles, every atom of iron in your blood, and every atom of calcium in your bones was literally forged in the crushing, fiery cores of distant stars that exploded in magnificent supernovas long before the Earth was even formed. You are ancient stardust that has miraculously achieved the ability to feel, to love, and to wonder. When we carefully study the profound, universally reported sensations of the near-death experience, the total dissolution of the human ego, the overwhelming, indescribable feeling of unconditional universal love, and the deep, abiding knowledge that everything is fundamentally, perfectly connected. We are not just studying a medical anomaly. We are looking directly at the true, underlying reality of our own cosmic nature, stripped of the heavy, daily illusions required for earthly survival. In our normal waking lives, the highly demanding default mode network in our brains constantly builds thick, defensive walls of separation. It tells us that we are completely isolated individuals, separate from nature, separate from each other, and separate from the vast, swirling cosmos. This biological illusion is absolutely necessary to help us navigate the chaotic physical world, to find food, to avoid danger, and to protect our fragile bodies. But the near-death experience proves, with absolute, measurable scientific clarity, that this rigid separation is merely a temporary, localized brain state. The underlying, fundamental reality, hiding just beneath the loud, chaotic noise of your daily thoughts, is a vast, quiet ocean of infinite connection and boundless peace. Understanding this profound scientific truth completely changes the way we should view every single interaction, every deep sorrow, and every moment of joy in our earthly lives. If the ultimate biological destiny of the human mind is to experience total, unconditional peace and a deep, welcoming return to the cosmos, then we do not need to spend our precious, waking days paralyzed by the primal fear of the unknown. The universe is not a cruel, cold machine waiting to extinguish us. It is a profoundly compassionate, deeply interconnected system that has evolved a magnificent, gentle mechanism to cradle our consciousness at the very end. When we deeply realize that there is nothing to fear in the quiet dark, we are suddenly, beautifully freed to live fully in the bright light of day. We can choose to consciously lower the heavy defensive walls of our egos right now, without having to wait for a sudden medical emergency to force them down. We can choose to utilize the incredibly sensitive mirror neurons in our cerebral cortex to deeply, authentically empathize with the struggles and the joys of the people around us, knowing with absolute certainty that their consciousness and our consciousness are woven from the exact same ancient universal fabric. Think deeply for a moment about the profound implications of the human heart and its intrinsic nervous system, that delicate network of 40,000 sensory neurons that constantly communicates with the brain. When a cosmic traveler returns from the edge of the vast unknown, their heart rate variability often reflects a state of deep, lifelong biological coherence. They naturally radiate the profound peace they discovered in the quiet dark. We all possess this exact same latent biological capacity. By cultivating a deep sense of respectful wonder for the natural world, by practicing quiet contemplation, and by deliberately choosing empathy over fear, we can actively train our own nervous systems to echo that exact same beautiful, harmonious frequency. We can literally alter our own biology to reflect the infinite, peaceful truth of the universe. Every single time you show deep, unselfish compassion to another human being, you are essentially bringing a tiny, glowing spark of the near-death light into the waking world. You are actively participating in the grand, continuous evolution of human consciousness, helping to slowly bridge the vast, silent gap between the temporary illusions of earthly separation and the eternal, beautiful reality of cosmic unity. The exploration of the fading human mind is perhaps the most intimate, breathtaking contemplation of the cosmos we can ever undertake. It takes the vast, incomprehensible mysteries of deep space and places them directly inside the microscopic, chemical valleys of our own brains. It shows us that the infinite, quiet universe is not just something out there, billions of light years away, but is also something intimately, fundamentally, right here, woven into the very fabric of our biology. The scientific reality of the near-death experience completely dismantles the ancient, terrifying myth of a dark, painful, and lonely end. It replaces that primal fear with a deeply comforting, mathematically and biologically grounded understanding of a gentle chemical transition, a profound psychological release, and a beautiful, infinite expansion back into the cosmic source. The universe has spent 14 billion years slowly, patiently building the exact biological mechanisms required to ensure that your final moments are filled with overwhelming peace and boundless, unconditional love. You are an incredibly cherished, fundamentally inseparable part of this grand cosmic symphony. When you next walk outside on a quiet, clear night and look up at the vast, endless canopy of distant, burning stars, I want you to remember everything we have explored together. Remember the 86 billion neurons in your mind, firing in perfect synchronized harmony to create your conscious experience of that magnificent sky. Remember the ancient, primordial stardust that makes up your physical body, and the deep, quantum vibrations that connect your individual awareness to the fundamental fabric of space-time itself. The vast, quiet cosmos you are observing is not alien to you. It is your ancient home. It is where you originally came from, and it is exactly where your consciousness will gently, peacefully return when the magnificent biological machinery of your brain finally, gracefully powers down. You are standing on a tiny, fragile planet, orbiting an ordinary star, in a quiet neighborhood of a massive spiral galaxy. But your mind contains the absolute entirety of the universe. The grand, eternal journey continues, and you are a vital, beautiful part of it all. Keep looking closely at the world around you. Keep asking profound questions, and never lose your gentle, respectful awe for the infinite cosmos that resides both far above you and deep within the quietest, most private spaces of your own beautiful mind.